Today, I have one of the most famous people in the entire Amazon space. Why? Because he created an entire generation of badass Amazon sellers through the Amazing Selling Machine. So I have here co-founder of Amazing.com, Amazing Selling Machine, also Life Boost Coffee, Tycoon Tribe, one of the best course sellers, information providers, email marketers on the entire planet. Guys, Matt Clark.
What's up, Aaron? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. So I just want to open, man, and just say, like, I may have said this before, but I just really appreciate what you did. I really appreciate you going through and showing us how to get started on Amazon, that it even exists as an opportunity. Because, you know, I took Amazing Selling Machine in 2015, and that honestly hugely changed the trajectory of my entire business career in ways that, I mean, I don't know any other path that would have gone that way. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, I found kind of early on, I think kind of like what you're finding out yourself or have found out is like, you know, some people can just sit there in their cave and like build their business and it's fine. They make a bunch of money, they treat their family well. And so life is good. But for me, it's like, I've always like had a problem just doing that and not like taking this stuff and using it to share and help people and stuff. So it's like, I always had that thing and I'm glad I was able to help you out too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's funny. My wife was actually telling me, like, I want to know, make sure you ask Matt, like, how did he start? Like, how did he get even the inspiration to even, you know, sell courses, or how did he get started in business? So I just want to, you know, go from the beginning. I haven't heard this story from you, you know, on your podcast, you haven't talked about it as far as I know, but where did this all start for you, your business journey?
Yeah, so kind of like a bridging part of this thing, both of my parents owned businesses when I was younger. And so I remember reading this kind of story or stat about people that have, you know, when they're younger, like money is like up and down. And so if you're, I mean, like your business, my business, like if you got parents that are both entrepreneurs, like sometimes life is good and sometimes life is not so good. And so that kind of creates this like intense financial drive for people because they're like, man, I like the up times, but I don't really like the down times. And so I think I had that in my head. So I always knew I wanted to run a business. And I went to college.
So hold on. So your parents had like a big downtime. So they had a bit uptime and you experienced that and then something happened.
Yeah. And so, business was up and down. My dad would start different businesses and some stuff would work, some stuff wouldn't, but just kind of kept finding a way through it. And so that was kind of my childhood. And then went to
So what
college.
was it down though? What was it down? Did you guys get kicked out of houses? Did you have to like, I don't know, you go on food stamps? Like what was this down? Or are you just like, hey, I can't get the stuff I want?
Probably more like it was never quite that bad. You know, we were pretty fortunate, but there were some times where he would call it like a moratorium on spending. Basically mean like we're not spending any more money right now.
Okay.
And things would be tight, but no, it was never as bad as like, you know, getting kicked out of the house and all that stuff, fortunately.
Okay. Yeah, but you're just like, yo, you can't get anything now. You used to have anything you want, now you got nothing. And you're like, oh, snap.
Exactly. Okay. That's spot on. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so then I was in college and I actually ended up like found out there was an entrepreneurship program in the school. I knew I wanted to run a business, but I found out there was this program. People were like, you should apply. And so I did, and I got in. And so like I had that going, but then like that was the time, like 2007, which, you know, you see like Wolf of Wall Street and like all that kind of stuff. Like the 1980s were like that time where like the investment banks are booming, people are making all kinds of money. There was kind of that thing going on, not quite that extreme in like 2007. That was before the financial crisis. But I was like, I'm reading about these like hedge fund managers and they're like making $1 billion in income in a year. Like not like the value of their businesses, like actual cash income. And I was like, Bill Gates is not making $1 billion in like cash income in a year. I was like, this sounds like a good business to be in. So I ended up double majoring in finance. And so to have this idea to go work for an investment bank. And so ended up doing that because I was going to do it for a few years and then start a related business. But I went into that job and I was just like miserable. Like I'm not built to work for somebody else, like whatsoever. Like my motivation, my drive, my ambition, everything just tanks because I'm just like, I'm going to do the least amount possible just to get a paycheck. And so I knew
it's good you admit it. It's good you admit it. Right now, you just put that on your resume. You're like, okay, that's it. I got to go start a business.
Yeah. And so then my dad, you know, he had a medical business at the time in Austin. I was in Houston. And I was like, well, I don't want to work for this big company because I have no idea what's going on in this thing. But I was like, I want to start a business, but I don't know what yet. So I was like, I'll go work with my dad in his clinic and see if I can help with marketing or finance where I figure out my own thing. So moved to Austin, and then he has a medical clinic. And I find that there's like these sales reps that would have these super high end, like really high quality supplements. Like there's brands that a lot of health influencers now talk about, like Designs for Health, Thorne Research. Yeah. And so those people would come sell these clinics. That was like their model. And I was like, doesn't seem like anybody's like selling these things online. And so
Mm-hmm.
I ended up kind of just fumbling my way through figuring out how to sell these things online. And was literally the only person selling those online at the time. And it was like, it
Wow.
was crazy because those brands were like, we like these sales, but then the doctor's offices would be like, hey, who the hell is this selling it online? Now people aren't buying it in my clinic. So they were complaining to them. They were complaining to me. And like every day I woke up with all these crazy emails of like all these problems happening. And
Or you
so
undercutting? Like, so like they would sell it in the clinic for like 90. You would sell it for like 50 or like 60 or just like 89 or what?
sometimes a little bit of both. Like never really had to go that crazy. If you offered like a 10% discount, 20%, all of a sudden people are buying from you. But a lot of times that wasn't even the problem. It was just that like they could only get it in the clinic. And that was their model. And the doctors like these extra sales. But now they could just, they have to go drive to the freaking clinic. And so now they could just buy it on my site. And so that business was kind of my learning vehicle. And so didn't know anything, ramped up to a couple $1 million in sales. I went from like nothing to like 11,000 products because it was all drop shipping. And that I ended up building because I had like a little bit of Excel experience from the investment banking thing. So I built what was called like VBA macros, which basically meant that like I told this thing to take all the products in my store and spit out like these like pre-built Google AdWords campaigns. And so that was great until I tried to do that on 11,000 products. Conversion tracking's terrible. I don't know what's working, what's not working. All I know is like the spending is going up and the not enough sales coming in. So then I ended up with like, $100,000 on my Amex at like 23 years old. And I'm just like, crap, like, I don't know how I'm going to pay this thing off. Like, I don't have the profit to pay this thing off.
Oh, no.
And, like,
So literally, okay, hold on. So you literally you're in total debt now. All your income, all the profits, everything is gone. You literally are 100 grand in the hole.
Yeah. Like I got this Amex bill that's coming due and like, I don't know what to do about it. And so that was when I was like, man, I was like, I was just learning through like books, which, marketing, online marketing books anyways, or at least I think they've gotten better now, but back then pretty terrible. Like it's all outdated information, like not like the real stuff you need to know. But that was the only way I knew how to learn. Then I would go to like little Google AdWords certification seminars and stuff. Like that was all I knew. And then somehow I ended up finding out about like Digital Marketer and their traffic conversion summit. This is back in the day when they were doing it in Austin and they would have an event with like jam-packed with like 400 people in like a tiny room. And the thing that was before like really blew up. And so then I was like, oh my God, like that was just like blowing my mind, like conversion optimization, like email marketing, like all that kind of stuff. And so there was like two things that happened there. Like one is I like learned how to do like copywriting and email marketing. And I was like, oh, I've got this email list. Like I probably didn't send any emails back then, but I'm like, man, I was like, I can actually make money from this thing. And that's what kind of got me out of the hole because I started doing that kind of marketing that wasn't based on spending money on ads. The other thing that happened there is like I would hear guys like Frank Kern and stuff like that. They were like, yeah, I sent an email the other day and I made $200,000. And I'm like, that seems like a good business also. And they were, selling courses and training and that kind of thing. I was like, so that was in the back of my head. I was like, that sounds like a cool thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So then from there, business kind of turns around, figuring out this other side of marketing that I didn't know before. And then around that same time, like SEO was how I built the first business. Then it was Google AdWords. But then I was finding like these things I was just losing all day long to Amazon on Google rankings. And I was like, didn't matter if I owned an exact match domain, like all that stuff used to matter back then. Amazon was winning. And I was like, well, if they're beating me, maybe I should figure out how to sell on there.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking at their help articles and that kind of stuff. And so I start selling on Amazon and started listing my products. And I was like, this is amazing. I was like, all I do is list these products on here. That was before there was no ads back then. And so I list the products and it's like, if they sell, they make money. If they don't sell, it doesn't matter. So I'm like, I got this bright idea. I'm going to take all 11,000 products and have like, 6 Filipinos work for around the clock for 6 weeks and add all these products to Amazon from like basically 10 products to like 11,000 products on Amazon. I was like, this would be great. I was like, if they sell, they make a lot of money. If they don't sell, it doesn't matter. But then the problem is that I started getting sales, but it was for all these like obscure products that like the supplier I was using would be like, oh, like that one's out of stock. What do you want to replace it with?
You have to cancel orders.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no replacing. I was like, that's not how this thing works. And so then I almost got the Amazon account suspended because of all that. So then I like really pulled all that back, focused on the core products that I had. And so then I was like, okay, starting to figure out this Amazon thing. But then where I think things really started changing was I was literally at the pool one day at our apartment complex. And there was this product that was taking off in my store. It was like I don't know if you remember the diet, HCG diet.
Yeah, HCG diet. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's like this homeopathic medicine that like didn't really hurt anybody, but
that was big in like 2009, right? 2010, something like that.
Yep, that was right around then. And so that product, I didn't even know what it was because I had all these products in my store, started blowing up. It became like the best-selling product in my store. And I was like, oh, this is great. But I didn't really know what it was. But then I just happened to be at the pool one day, and there's this kind of jacked guy who's like, very personable. He's like, hey, man, what do you do? So we start talking business and stuff. He's like, I actually can private label that product for you. And I was like, what? And he was like, it's just some business that he had. And so he was like, yeah, you're paying $10 a bottle. I can get it to you for like $4 a bottle, and it'll have your own brand name on there. So I was like, that sounds great. And so this guy, like I had an office at the time in Austin. This guy would literally roll up in his like Range Rover with like cases of my product in his back of his car. I was like, this is the shiftiest looking thing. He was literally doing this stuff like in his house. And so then I added those to my store, and margins were way better. But then I started figuring out how to sell those on Amazon. And so that's when like I started realizing, oh, if I put a keyword in the title, I sell more on Amazon. If I write more stuff in the description, I sell more on Amazon. If I add a little bonus PDF to the image, I sell more on Amazon. Nobody was doing any of that stuff back then. Like back then, the only way people sold on Amazon was they were literally running these little feed softwares where they would feed products from their e-commerce store to Amazon. It was just an automatic thing. And they pick up a few sales. Nobody was like actually doing marketing on there. And so that's when I started figuring out like, what are the levers you can pull to rank stuff? And so that started working really well on Amazon. And then had joined this mastermind group. And
so hold on. So how much does that mean really well? Like what does really well mean at that time? And what year is this?
That would have been 2010 or 11. And I think I was doing like $100,000 a month on Amazon.
Wow. And of course, that's way beyond anything that you did anywhere else, or obviously profit wise.
It was much more profitable because on my online store, I'd gotten that up to like $2 million a year. But it was like so much money was being eaten up by ad costs. Amazon, there was no ad costs. So it was extremely profitable back then. And the products had a lot higher margin because they were my own brand finally.
Nice.
But then I was in this mastermind group, and the guy asked me to like, the main guy running it was like, hey, can you do a presentation for the whole group on this stuff you're doing on Amazon? I was like, sure. Like I'd never done this before. And so I was in like a little like small group within the mastermind. I was like telling these guys, hey, I'm going to do this presentation for the whole group. Like I just want some feedback from what you all think. And this one guy was in the mastermind, his name's Jason. And he was like, hey man, he's like, I got this email list of like 250,000 people because he was doing affiliate marketing and that was kind of dying off. And he was like, I got this email list of like 250,000 people that would like love to hear what you're doing on Amazon. Would you ever want to create a course? And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm tired of like, living in my cave by myself. I remember Frank Kern saying you send an email, you make $200,000. And like, here's this guy on my plate that's kind of like, hey, if you teach this stuff, like we can do this deal together. And so that's how ASM, the first version, what became ASM, started. And
that was a amazing money machine, no?
Amazon money machine. Before Amazon, we were like, we probably shouldn't have Amazon in the title, yeah.
Oh, that's why you renamed it, I guess, because Amazon, maybe Amazon was going to come for a lawsuit or something.
Yeah, never had an issue, but we kind of preempted that, yeah.
Okay, so you went. So this was amazing, by the way. I didn't know this story about you and Jason Katzenbach meeting there. I mean, you have one set of assets, right? You have the skill to sell on Amazon before anybody knew. You were basically one of the first, like, coming into that area. Jason has a massive email list, and then you're going to do this presentation. So do you launch it right there? How does that then grow?
So Jason, he had the email list, and he also like knew all the internet marketers at the time. And so that was like, they still kind of do it now, but back then it was very like, everyone was doing these launches. Like, I don't know if you ever remember like product launch formula from Jeff Walker. Like everyone was following that format. And so he was like, okay, like my job was to create the course because I knew the content. Jason was going to do everything else, get the affiliates, like help me beta test the course, set up the launch, all that kind of stuff. And so he did all that. I just created the course. So within like a month or something, like I just like pumped this course out, and Jason gave me a lot of feedback. He's like, this video sucks. This video makes no sense. And it was good combination like that. Cause I just want to get stuff done as quickly as possible. And Jason would make sure that it's like good quality. So we did that. We beta tested the course with people that paid like $100 or something. So they had a little skin in the game. They gave even better feedback. Then we do like a typical like product launch formula launch, which is like 4 videos. Each video kind of teaches content. That's what we kind of used to run. And then we launched that thing, and the doors open for basically a week, and we do like $1 million in sales, which was great. Some people have done different numbers back then and stuff, but it was like even for then, like when internet marketing was like kind of probably that kind of marketing was at its heyday, I guess, like that was still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of, we went from there. Yeah.
That's amazing. And that was the first version. That was the Amazon money machine. $1 million in a week. I mean, that was, did you think it was going to go anywhere at that level, like so quickly?
I don't remember. Like, to be honest, like I don't remember. Like, I'd always been like pretty ambitious. And so me, it wasn't like, oh my God, like this is like, all my dreams have come true. It was kind of like, okay, this is like really good sign. It was kind of like what I was thinking, but
wow.
I don't remember what my expectations were.
Okay, cool. I mean, either way, you had a business already doing, over $1 million. So it wasn't like you went from zero to that, right? That was, plus you had partnership and everything. Okay, cool. And then did you start, so I got in through affiliates, right? That was a big thing, how I got in. And there's a lot of people I know who are doing the affiliates and signing people up. Did you start that way right away, or how did the whole affiliates thing come into play?
Yeah, so we did that launch, which had a base of affiliates that Jason knew. His old business partner was a different Jason Potash, I think was his name. Like, he knew people that they all had relationships, and they all promoted this thing kind of based on goodwill, I guess, and something new to talk about. And so they did really well. And then what happened was we basically closed the doors. And then for the rest of that year, that was probably like April or so, for the rest of that year, we just ran private webinars. So there'd be like some affiliate who'd be like, hey, do a webinar for my list. We split the commissions. I have to do the presentation. We pitch the thing. They get half the money. And so we did that. Then those people would get really good results. It took some refining. I mean, the first one we ever did was this old school internet marketing guy. His name's like Mark Ling. He was like, that webinar sucked. He's like, you got to improve this thing. And I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first one I ever did. And so he gave me good, like, hard feedback, and then so improved that. And then it started converting really well for people. Like, that's the whole affiliate game. Even today in any market is like, you can get affiliates to do stuff based on relationships, but the only way it really scales is if you make them more money than their other opportunities, and you're treating customers well, so they're not like losing goodwill and that kind of thing. But it's really about the money. And so would have one affiliate who would like crush it with a webinar. They would tell their friend, you got to do a webinar with these people. And so that led to a lot of different relationships, including like the one that we had with Jason Fladley and Wilson Matos with Rapid Crush. They became our biggest affiliate, but that was just kind of like one person led to another, led to another, led to another. And then we like got in touch with those guys, and they became one of the biggest affiliates. And so that was like the rest of the year. And then at the time, we actually had 3 models in there. We had drop shipping, private labeling, and Kindle was all built into Amazon Money Machine.
Okay.
But we found out like my best results, Jason started doing the business, like all of our students, the best results all came from like the private labeling, selling physical products on Amazon. So we got rid of everything else. We doubled down on that model, added a live event. I think we added a couple software tools. And then that next year, which I think would have been 2013, we did our first like major launch of Amazing Selling Machine. And then that's where things just kind of like blew up, like, because that did far better than anybody ever expected. And then that just kind of snowballed for the next few years.
Okay, so that Amazing Selling Machine, that first launch, how much did you do in that launch?
6.7 million. And same thing in like a week or two.
Wow. That's nuts. That is nuts. And so how long did it take for people to get results, right? I mean, obviously this is a very time when Amazon was very open, and like, I know stories of people that got in and started making so much money immediately. How fast did your students see results?
I mean, a lot of times it was within like 3 months or so, because a lot of them back then, like my experience was selling health supplements. So we had to fumble our way through, like somebody's like in the US, they want to source in China. Somebody's in the UK, they want to sell in the US, they want to source from China or India or something. That's like, we were kind of figuring that out on the fly, even though like the concepts all made sense, but we didn't know a lot of those little nuances. Because my experience all came from selling supplements, which you source in the US and sell in the US. But at the time, like that was a big opportunity. So we had a lot of other people that would join and start selling supplements. So for them, they could get a product live within like a month or so. And a lot of times, like within 2 to 3 months, like they were getting really good results. Like one of our various earliest success stories, which I don't think he cares if I say who it is, but it's a guy named David Paul. He owns the brand NatureWise, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with on Amazon. He was one of the very first success stories. He was like a pastor, like, not making a lot of money. I think he had to borrow money from his parents to buy a house for his family and this and that. He takes our course, literally runs our little software tool, presses a button. It says, sell this product. He sells this product. And within like a few months, he's doing like $100,000 a month in sales, pays his parents back for their house, like all that kind of like stuff. Like that was like one of the first big ones where we were like, holy crap, like there's like real stuff happening here. So back then it was like fairly quickly, just because Amazon is faster and like also sourcing products. And then like, if you did the most basic marketing stuff, like within days, you're ranking like in the top 3.
Yep. Yeah. And we saw we started in 2015, and even then you'd go to Amazon and see listings and you would say like, oh, this is an amazing selling machine listing because it has like a little bullets, it has a nice image, and the other ones were just so garbage. And it was very common to find products on Amazon that were so bad, and you literally could tell this is ASM, this is not ASM. And I'd even go and find, oh yeah, that's a person. I'd find out, oh yeah, that is literally a student. So it's made a humongous impact.
Yeah, that was a weird experience. I'd be shopping on Amazon and I could literally just look at the listings and tell which ones were our students. It was very strange.
Wow. Okay, and so then, of course, that had a bit of that grew like crazy, and at some point it, became less. I mean, I guess for whatever reason, but what was your peak? What was like the hottest time for the Amazing Selling Machine?
I think it was probably 2015, actually, because I think that year we had 2 launches, and I think one of them, the numbers are not adding up for me. I know one of the launches did like 20 million or something, and the other one, total revenue that year, I think was like 30 something million. And so maybe there's like a payment plan thing that's not calculating right, because I thought it was 2 launches that were like closer to 20 million, but maybe it was like 20 million and 10 million or something like that. But I think it was like 2015 was kind of like all the affiliates. Because I mean, part of that thing back then was like people getting really good results. So they tell all their friends and that kind of stuff. That really helps. You have lots of recent testimonials. And then also all the affiliates, like the stars kind of have to align for them. So we would have like every big name affiliate you could possibly want back then, like all promoting at the same time. And that's what created like the really big numbers. Then eventually affiliates move on, competitors enter, they start selling their own courses. It gets harder, starts getting harder to sell on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's like the nature of selling any information products. Like we did really well for a good period of time. Part of it was like timing luck. Part of it was like the right values, like treating people well, trying to create good stuff, trying to deliver. And then part of it was the execution, like kind of how we designed the course from the beginning, which was different, which was like, hey, let's get these people the result. Let's not just teach them a bunch of crap. And so that I think also helped. And so all those stars kind of align. But I think with info products, it's kind of like eventually it all goes to zero because people are like, like what if I sell this for like $1,000? Like it's just videos. Like what if I sell it for 500? What if I get it away for free? So that I think happens in any info product market. It's just we had a pretty good run for a while.
Absolutely. So have you calculated the total amount of sales for Amazing Selling Machine to get people started on Amazon?
Like that we produced our revenue?
Yeah, sales, like what was the total amount paid to Amazing Selling Machine for the courses?
Over 100 million.
Over 100 million. Woo! That's great. And that's videos, right? Essentially, videos and mentorship. I mean, I know you guys had like this whole mentorship program where, a person would come and talk to you. And obviously, Mike McClary wanted me to ask you why you wouldn't answer Slack messages. But but obviously Mike was part of that. There's a lot of different guys who came in and had different, actually talking to people and getting through and asking questions. And you had a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
And so it really was not just the videos, and it was the community and the events. I mean, I've met a lot of people at the amazing events. So honestly, it was more than just videos. But essentially, the core product, videos for $100 million, unbelievable. I mean, that's unbelievable.
That's the thing with information stuff is like the right time and right place. There's a super high value on it because you can't get it anywhere else. I mean, like you kind of saw this happen again, like even more like extreme with like the crypto stuff. Like those guys like Jason Fladley and them and stuff like that, they did something like $60 million with a webinar, like in 2020 or whenever that kind of crypto peak kind of happened.
Wow.
But then it like, as far as I know, I don't know this for sure, but like, I'm pretty sure it just died off after that because people like, they don't care as much. It does not really make anybody money as far as I know. But there's like such a hype and people were like, and I knew a guy actually, a friend of mine separately, nothing related to these guys. He may promote him as affiliate, but like he like was super early on. Like I can't remember if this was like 2017 or 18 or 19. He was like pumping out videos on how to do crypto stuff. And like, he was just blowing up. Like he almost got too much demand where he shut it all down because he was like getting weird people like stalking him and stuff like that. And so like, he just like shut it all down, but he was like doing insane numbers, but it's like, then it kind of dies off because it's like, it all goes to zero. But yeah.
Yeah. At some point you learn, okay, good. How to buy Bitcoin. Everyone, like not everyone, but it's pretty simple. You just YouTube it, you got it. Like you can buy it or whatever.
Yeah.
So at some point, the big piece is like, are you ahead of the curve? In your case, nobody knew about Amazon. Nobody knew how to sell at all. Nobody had the information. It really was something where it was so unique and so novel that it's like, wow, humongous value. Because again, same thing now. It's like, okay, dude, there's everyone and their mother has a course. You know what I mean? Like I have a course. Like so, Job has a course. You know, and then
Yeah.
But okay, cool. Now, one thing. What is your favorite result? Like, what is a favorite thing that you got out of the entire process of Amazing Selling Machine?
I mean, I think it's got to be like the impact on so many people we would have never met that, some of them, like their lives have literally been transformed. It's not just like, hey, I made an extra few $1,000s, like, thanks. It's like, no, it's like, I've had so many people who come up, they never heard it before. We'd be at our live event and they come up and be like, oh man, like we were struggling, we had this going on. And then all of a sudden, we just sold a business for like $5 million. I think that's what like, even to this day, has still been like chasing more of that. Cause there's like making money is nice and stuff like that. But it's like, I don't think anything really compares to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. And that's, I'm going to go back to what you were saying earlier. It's like, hey, how do you have that kind of impact? How do you get in with these people? And in fact, from listening to your story, every piece, every part that you gained and grew was through somebody you met. Okay, the guy at the pool, dude, that was crazy. You meet a guy at the pool, you meet a guy at this mastermind, someone tells you to do a webinar, like all these different pieces, and all of the growth from what I've been listening has been from people. And so it only makes sense that, hey, you go and back and service these people and show them how to do things. And it's a bit of the cycle of life that is what makes us human. That we rely on other people and they rely on us, and like we work together, and that's what makes the world a better place.
That's like one of the craziest things that I realized after, I don't know, probably like 6 years of doing business or something, is like, I was like, I can literally trace back like the biggest leaps to like meeting some person. And it's like, you're sitting there like hustling and grinding and learning and trying and all that kind of stuff all day long, 24/7. But then you like meet the right person at the right time, and all of a sudden it's like 10X's whatever you have going on. I can almost like trace back those things to like, 6 or 7 key people, ever since I've been doing business. And so that's why it's kind of like, a lot of times we just want to be like, I'm just going to learn the next marketing thing or something. But it does help to get out there and sort of try to meet and learn from the right people. I think sometimes people probably go a little overkill. It's like, we all know those people that are just like, they go to every event. And I'm like, What are you doing with all this stuff? I think there's like a balance, but I do think the people part is essential.
Absolutely, I agree. And actually, that brings me to Amazing is doing the mastermind, right? The Tycoon Tribe, which I've gone down there and spoken and done listing teardowns with the group. So that's part of, meeting people and going and actually having conversations and having people look at your listings and look at your plan and what you're going to do. And so you want to just talk about that for a little bit for someone who might be interested?
Yeah, for sure. So I kept seeing, we did like one-off masterminds throughout the years, but I was like, never really wanted to do like an ongoing mastermind, because I'm like, it just never made sense to me. I'm like, you either have too many people, it's not a mastermind. You don't have enough people, like the money's not really worth it. And I'm like, how is this like a good business? But then after like, we haven't talked about like Life Boost and that kind of thing, but after building that, it's like we got Amazing going on. And then at some point I was like, I bought the nice cars, I bought the big house and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, making more money is great, but it's like, there's something else here that I want. And so what I started noticing over the years was like, there was these people that would just get stuck. Like they would build a business, they would do all the things right. They'd get to like $1 to $5 million and they would never get beyond that. And so for a lot of reasons, like, I don't think that's where the journey ends. Because it's everybody I know that's ever sold a business at that level is back building another business, starting from scratch all over again. And it's not necessarily a better business either. And so I'm like, all these people are getting stuck at this level. They're not getting like the real freedom that comes from a bigger business. So finally decided to start a mastermind a couple of years ago, because I was like, okay, like I want one that I actually want to hang out with these people, but I want to sort of cater to this group of people that are kind of stuck at that level and they want to grow bigger and better. Like they're not sort of like breaking through that ceiling. And so ended up creating that, and we call it the Tycoon Tribe. We've been doing it since end of 2022. And so we've got about maybe half of the people are Amazon focused, half the people are Shopify focused. But at this day, like I think people should kind of be doing both. And yeah, we meet a couple times a year. We offer to do like one-on-one coaching with people. I mean, we're seeing like pretty insane results. Like some of these people, their businesses are kind of stagnating. Then they grow $1 million the next year. Then they grow $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 the next year. And we can't say it's all because of us, but like this whole thing of meeting the right people at the right time, it's easy for me, for somebody who's built like multiple businesses into the 8 figures, to look at somebody doing a couple $1,000,000 a year and be like, hey, focus here. Because it's like, I've already made all these dumb mistakes that hopefully you get to skip over. That's fairly straightforward. And that's where I see a lot of the value happening here.
Awesome. So guys, definitely check out Tycoon Tribe. And if you're there, we might meet in person sometime. Okay, now let's dive into this, because when I went out and I said, look, what questions should we ask Matt? I want to say there was a torrential outpour of people saying like, thank you, you've impacted in my life, like I'm now selling millions, I'm doing this, I got freedom for my family. And that's the number one thing that showed up. Okay, just so you know, right?
That's
number
great.
two number two is like, okay, let's talk about the Shopify. Let's talk about you were big, and you're from that time period, like everyone knew, hey, you actually sold on Amazon, you knew how to sell, you were our guide on Amazon, and then you win and transformed into the Shopify side, right? And now you're bigger success than Amazon is even on Shopify. And there's so many Amazon sellers that are curious, how do you shift, and what is the success dependent on when you do your D2C or Shopify site? And so let's go into that. Like, first, maybe just into your journey. And I know about this a little bit, but just for our audience, like, how did you even get into the D2C in the first place?
So that's where I actually started. When I first started selling, like we talked about, like my very first business, like Amazon was not really a thing. It was tiny back then compared to now anyways. And so I was selling on my own website. So that's where I started, found this opportunity on Amazon, a lot of easy room for growth, high margin stuff. You don't have to spend money on ads. Then we started building amazing, and then didn't have any time to do any of that because I'm like trying to keep the wheels on in this thing that's growing so fast. Uh-huh. And so then, but was still kind of, I guess at the time, like messing around with some Amazon stuff. Had like 1 or 2 accounts suspended. Wasn't, at the time it was kind of Wild West. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff with the reviews. And so some of it was self-inflicted. And then some of it was just when I was like, okay, that's dumb to do that stuff. Some of it was just kind of the uncertainty of the platform at the time. Like you would just get caught up in some sort of like policy change. And then I was like, this kind of sucks. It's like you put in all this time and effort and then it could just be taken away overnight. So that was kind of in my head. And I was like, I'd prefer to go back to selling on my own website and be able to just kind of use Amazon as needed. Now, with all that same time period, I know you sell majority on Amazon and stuff. At some point, like even before I went back and started building the new brand, Amazon got a lot more stable. It's like you don't usually just get kicked off for some random reason.
No, correct.
It's like,
what it was 2015, 2017, whatever, all that time period, a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's definitely been a lot of stabilization for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So if you do the right things, like you're probably fine. But then on the other side, PPC came along at some point, which was great at the beginning. Now can be very expensive. Then Amazon fees started going up, and then like Amazon went and invited all the Chinese sellers. So it's like you got to really know what you're doing on that platform. And just me, nature, I could never work for somebody else, and so I have a hard time also like feeling like I'm working for Amazon or not having that control. So maybe it's a personality thing. I don't know. And so along the way, I was like looking at Dave Asprey's stuff, Bulletproof founder, reading his blogs and all that kind of stuff. And then he was like, oh yeah, you should drink healthier coffee that's non-toxic. He has these long ass articles back in the day that kind of explain why. And so then I was like in Austin, like looking for the healthiest coffee that he kind of recommended. Then I was like, oh, I think this is like a big space like that could blow up. And then I was talking with my current business partner, Charles, and he actually had this brand selling super high-end, like healthy coffee that was just kind of sitting there on the side. He had some supplier issues. His thing was never really like, how do I do all the marketing, get customers in the door? He's really good at like keeping customers, creating products, upselling and that kind of thing. But he didn't have the piece of like getting them in the door, which is what I'm pretty good at. And so I ended up like partnering with him. I was like, if I can help you scale this thing fast, let's do like an equity deal. Like I put no money in, but it's kind of sitting there so we can grow real fast. And I own a good chunk of the business. And so we did that. And that was all Shopify at first. And so we own the customer list, allows me to do all the direct marketing stuff that I learned back in the day on the internet marketing side and kind of refined it amazing because doing launches, you're sending emails and conversion optimization. And so it's all the same kind of skill just applied to e-commerce. And so I was able to apply all of that stuff to grow this brand on Shopify. And so after about a year and a half, we ended up adding Amazon, which is a great channel for us now. But it's like I still like having the core of our business on Shopify. So that's kind of the journey. But yeah, we can get into like how to actually do it if you want.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And so, and I was just listening to your podcast, right? I know you have a limited amount of episodes, but you had a podcast on quality. And you said something which is brilliant, right? Which is the first thing you do when assessing someone's business is, what do you have special about your product? How is it more special? What's better about it? Why would somebody buy it over your competitor? And if you don't have an answer, you don't have a business. Like there is nothing there that you're going to blow up and actually do marketing on. And so from what I'm hearing, what you're saying now, like Charles had this whole life boosting that was already very high quality and in a market that was underserved, right? So that's the core. And I just want to make sure everyone understands, like, before you do any marketing, if you don't have a product that is good and worth marketing, you're very, very, very unlikely to succeed. So just putting that out there. Okay, so now with that in mind, like, what was the marketing piece and what made you succeed when before, hey, the product was already there, but it wasn't selling that well?
Yeah, so I think exactly what you just said is the first step. It's like you got to have something unique to say. If you don't have anything unique to say, it's kind of like it's going to be hard selling this thing. It's like, hey, we've got the same exact freaking blue yoga mat, same material, same size, same everything as the one you could sell on Amazon, but please buy ours for 50% more. Like, it doesn't work. So that's one piece, is having something unique to say. And in most cases, though this is maybe not as true going forward, is that in most cases, like, you want a big market. And so then Facebook, like, you can just let it target everyone and it can go find new people, because that's usually the biggest traffic source for D2C. So big market, unique product, unique angle. And so the next step was for us to find out, like, what is the angle that's actually going to, because we know there's a lot of coffee drinkers. We know in general, health is a good market. It's one of the sort of tried and true markets. But what is the angle about this that's actually going to get some random stranger who sees an ad on Facebook to actually want to buy it? So that was the next thing for us to figure out. Before then, we kind of had to make sure we covered all our bases with basic direct marketing stuff, meaning, like, you got to have a good headline. You got to make sure you have your benefits, your features. You got to have a good offer, some scarcity elements, some guarantee, social proof. Like, if you look up any like article online, sales letter template or something, you'll see all those basic elements. So that just kind of gets you in the door. So we got all those basic elements, but we still don't know, like, what is the main angle that's going to get some stranger to buy. And so I think this is a good practice, and what I recommend everyone do if they want to try to scale with a product on a display-based platform like Facebook, because on Amazon, people are searching for keywords. You can still do some of this in there, but usually they're looking for a keyword, and there's different ways to sell products. On Facebook, they're not looking for it. So you're like grabbing them. Mm-hmm. And so with that, we basically came up with, like, what do we think are like the 5 to 10 reasons somebody could buy? And so it's just kind of throwing stuff against the wall. The more marketing I've done, the more I realize you never know what's going to work. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, I may think that it's because, we support the environment, we support the farmers, maybe because Charles is a doctor, maybe because the coffee is low acid, or we may take the fear angle and say all other coffees are toxic. And so it's like, we're kind of throwing ideas against the wall. And then we're like, okay, like, how do we take the sales page that covers all our basic elements, but then we just change the top part and then change the ad to say that, like, okay, all coffee is toxic, you should buy our coffee. And then another ad in top angle says, our coffee has a super low acidity. That's what the ad and the page says. And then the rest, 90% of the page is exactly the same. Still covers basic features, benefits, testimonials, that kind of thing. But we're trying to find, like, what is that big element that's going to flag down people and make them want to buy on the spot. So that was the first thing that we tested. And then we ended up kind of narrowing down.
So, but hold on. Okay, now, because I want to actually do this, right? This is something, I need this for me now. Okay. This 90% of the page, did you test that already? Or that part, you just assume it's going to be good? Like, how do you, like, when should you change the hook part and when should you change that 90% of the body?
I think you have to do the 90% of the body well. And, by this point, this was like an advantage Charles and I had. He had done a bunch of direct marketing. I had done a bunch of direct marketing. We'd both been in the game for like 10 years. And, it's kind of a weird stat or fact, I guess, is that I, other than the first launch, wrote every single piece of copy pretty much for Amazing Selling Machine. So you could argue, like, I'm one of the top selling copywriters like ever in history or whatever. But it's like the last thing
I would argue that for sure. I would argue that.
Yeah. So the last thing I'd ever want to do is like write paid copy for other people. But it's like, It is what it is. So it kind of refined this skill for so many years, but it's all the same stuff. Like, if you bought any of the good copywriting books, like, buy one of the ones by that, there's that Jim Edwards guy that I think works with Russell Brunson. And then there's like Ray Edwards, I think unrelated, another copywriter. If you buy one of their books, they'll teach you all the basics, but it's kind of like all those elements that I just kind of rattled off. And so those things you need to have there, but that's not the first thing I would test. Like, as long as you're literally like a checklist covering all those elements, you got lots of reviews and stuff like that, Then the big thing I think you have to test first is like that main core angle, or some marketers will call it like a hook. Like, what is that thing that's going to like grab people and make them be like, oh yeah, I should pay attention to this thing. And then you get them to like pay attention, and then they read all the rest of your stuff. And then if you do all that stuff right, they buy. So we're kind of making sure we cover those things, not testing them at first. You can test them later, but cover those things and then test the big thing first.
Okay. Test the hook. And what do you consider the hook? Is that just the beginning of the video, the whole content of the video, the headline? Like, how would you, and again, I know it changes and whatever, but when you look at how much do you want to be changing? Do you want to change the first few seconds of the video? You want to change the whole video? You want to change how much?
I think it's almost easier, and you can tell me if you think this kind of metaphor example makes sense, is that I think it's almost easier. Like if there was like if you were in a coffee shop and there was like a customer sitting over, a potential customer, you're like, okay, this person's like in the right market and stuff. They're a good potential buyer. They don't know who you are. They don't know your product. If you only had 20 seconds to talk to them, like what would you tell them is the reason they should buy your product? For example, like if you have some new fancy yoga mat that's like, you found that like all the yoga people are super upset because they slip on the mats, and you know the person does yoga, and you're like, hey, I've got this new mat that like you'll never slip once. And they're like, okay, now I'm listening. And then you're like, oh, by the way, it's got a good price and it's got a guarantee and all that kind of stuff. And so it's like that thing that you would use to go grab some random stranger, and if you had 20 seconds to tell them why they should buy your product. I mean, that's kind of what I consider a hook. I've never seen like a definition that I really like, but that's kind of what I consider. And so for me, it's like that core sales reason. And like I said, for us, it's like, you'll have ideas. Like for any of your products, if you sat down with like just one member of your team, and you don't need a million of these, but if you came up with 5 to 10, like what is the main reason? What is the main benefit? What is the main feature of our product that you think that if we had to focus on that, that would sell more than anything else? And then you're going to have a bunch of guesses. Like, I think there's very low likelihood that you could do that 10 times in a row and be able to pick the winning one, even half of the time.
Right. Yeah, because you're not your audience, and who knows, right? But as you're saying, I love that. Okay, good. What would you go and tell somebody at the coffee shop? And so in that, how do you format it in the ad? So again, I mean, I don't know the exact statistic, but I think the scrolling like on a TikTok or on a Facebook or whatever, well, Facebook it's longer, but on TikTok, I don't know, each video gets viewed an average of like 0.9 seconds or something ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So does it need to like just grab them to see the rest of it, and then you get that message across in the first, you're saying like 20 seconds, 10 seconds. And tactically, when you said, I mean, look, I love the definition, and now how would I start testing that? You change entire videos, you change the first 20 seconds, kind of like what you're talking about, or you change the first half a second, like how much are you getting? And of course, this have multiple answers, I'm sure, but generally speaking, I want to go and promote my coffee machine. What do you suggest for me?
Yeah. So I would say, unless your product's over like $100, I'd probably skip the video on the landing page. If it's over $100,
skip the video on the landing page, or skip the video on the ad itself?
On the landing page.
Okay, skip video on the landing page.
If it's under $100, because it's more of an impulse purchase. It's kind of somewhat arbitrary, but then I don't think you need it. And I think people are more likely to do a bad job on the video than a good job and just waste money. But then on the ad, I think you just start with, because you're trying to test the main angle. You're not necessarily trying to do a bunch of ad testing. So you just want an ad that fits that angle. And so for us, like we got away from this ad. I didn't want the risk, but I was like, one angle is the low acidity of the coffee. So then I literally like thought of this idea. I was like, created a little chart that plotted like us and other brands on a pH scale. And I was like, okay, like, Starbucks, acidic, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever. So that was just trying to represent this in like an image. And I think that's fine to get started. Like, you don't have to go, you're just trying to test the broad angle, not trying to create the world's best creative. And so I would think.
And in this case, that was an image, just an image ad instead of a video.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook changes. Like sometimes, like when we, the first, 3 years of scaling the business, like I was dialed in on the Facebook, sort of meeting with our guy like every week. And you would go through these phases of like, 3 months where it's like images are working better. Then the next 3 months, videos are working better. So it's like not guaranteed that video is going to work better. Sometimes images work fine. And so I think also just like a little clip showing that benefit or that angle, just whatever kind of represents that idea, I think is good enough to get started. And then have your little headline text and have the post text just kind of match that. And then once you really kind of figure out like which angle's working, then you can start getting more
ad
creative. It's,
testing on ads. So first you're doing
yeah.
a general test. Okay, you don't have to do 10 different types. You just do it like as a general message. Does it communicate that message? Check maybe 10, 15 different headlines or different angles, right? What are you going to tell that person? Make sure it pretty much communicates that well, and do a bunch of them. See what does best. So now you're changing image and or video, right? You're talking about your call to action, that little description in the text. All of that would kind of go after that angle. And then on your landing page, okay, you're saying sub $100, don't include a video sales letter or anything like that. Just, maybe direct product page or some sort of landing page. And then on there, how much of that beginning part should be approximately also going into that same thing you just talked about in the ad?
I would say just the headline and then the first few paragraphs or bullets, whatever you have at the top of the page. And if there's like an image up there, maybe make that fit the ad also, so there's congruency. Mm-hmm. But for us, we would literally just change the headline. And then at the time, it would go from headline to like this, from the desk of Dr. Charles. And so I would change a little bit of that, like a couple paragraphs, and like that was it. Like that was the only thing that would change for the angle.
Nice. That's brilliant. Okay. I'm going to have to try this. And what do you do? And again, this is a little bit in the weeds or whatever, but how much dollars do you have to spend on an ad? And what metric are you seeing? Like, oh, this hook is pretty good, and then we like this angle versus the other angle. So if I did 10 tests, like what shows you what's better?
Yeah, I think in general, especially if this is new for you, you're pretty much always starting at like a low budget. Like, you have one campaign this is, technical, but like not using campaign budget optimization on Facebook, which means that you control the ad set spend. And so one campaign, no campaign budget optimization, 5 ad sets, basically one ad per ad set, all targeting the same audience. The only thing different is like the ad and the landing page go to a certain angle, but otherwise the ad sets are all the same. Start each of those like $20 a day, I think is fine. And then just make sure, because what's going to happen is like 9 times out of 10, something's going to be screwed up with the conversion tracking at first. So you find that out after spending a couple $100 instead of a couple $1,000. And so as you kind of sort through those things, you're like, okay, like maybe it's not profitable, but it's like the numbers are at least correct. And then you go from there. And so in most cases, like you'll start seeing some clear losers, some clear winners, and then maybe some in between. And so you probably are going to want, I don't know, maybe at least 100 transactions until you can really sort of pick a winner.
Wow, 100 transactions on. You're talking about 100 transactions on the winner while they're all running, or 100 transactions to say total?
I would say total. Okay. It really depends, because it's like if you had one that is just blowing everything out of the water and everything else is terrible, it's like, congratulations. It's like your decision is easy. If you've got, they're all doing terrible, then maybe go back to the drawing board and need some different angles. If you've got, 2 that are terrible and then 3 that are kind of in the middle, then it's like those you're probably going to have to run longer to get any sort of statistical significance. It's a somewhat art, somewhat science, but it's like you don't want to call it too early and be like, oh, we found it. But then you've only had like 20 transactions total, and you're like, you get 3 more transactions, and all of a sudden it's a different one's a winner. So that's where you're trying to avoid.
Right.
And there's little calculators online that'll be like, if you Google, like Neil Patel has one, statistical significance calculator. It's like you can literally plug your conversions and that sort of thing in there. And it'll tell you like, has this reached statistical significance? So that's one way to do it.
Okay, nice. Awesome. Okay, excellent. So now let's talk about briefly, what kind of success have you seen in LifeBoost, right? Like if you can share, right, what was it kind of at the beginning, and then where are you guys at now?
So when I partnered up with Charles to kind of say, if I can help grow this business, I own a part of the business. If I don't, the business is yours. Like we part ways. That was 2019, January of 2019. The year before, the business did about 200 grand in sales. Then we went January of 2019, the business was doing 17 grand a month in sales that month. And then by the end of the year, it was like 569,000 or something. And so
for the year or for a month?
For that month. And so,
oh wow.
Yeah. So I think that whole year we did like 2.5 million. And then that was 2019. Then 2020, it was a pandemic, but I don't think that we had this massive lift because of the pandemic. It's just because we happened to be scaling our ads at the time. And so that next year, we did, I'm starting to lose track now, 16 million, I think. Yeah. And then that gets to 2020. And then like today we do basically 40 million a year. I
Amazing.
feel like I've recited these numbers of like, we did this year, this year, then now, but it's been like a year or 6 months since I've had to do it. So, so I know like we did the 2.5 million, then basically now we do like 40 million a year.
That's amazing. And this is, you have a lot of subscriptions, right? You have a lot of customers that come back. Like I think heard some statistic, I think that was from you or from Charles maybe, that you guys are in other, like the Recharge app or some sort of subscription app. You guys are like the top 0.001% of all subscriptions on Shopify or something like that. Is that
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, he manages more of that, but I've heard him say that also, yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, subscriptions, people like the coffee and they keep buying it. Like that's a great sign. So that's less of like Uncle Bezos saying, "Hey, sorry, you're cut off forever."
Yeah, I mean, we like subscribe and save also. You know, we've been pushing that on Amazon, and that's grown really well for us. We at some point, which I'm sure you know as well as anybody else, but at some point we saw one of our competitors, Four Sigmatic, and I was looking at their Amazon listing, and it was like, if you're on their one-time purchase little selection on the product page, it showed like, hey, sign up for subscribe and save and get 30% off your first order. So it was almost like pushing them to subscribe and save. And this was like at a time where I was like, hey, Mike McClary, or I was like, how do we do this? And he was like, well, it's not available to everyone yet. But then literally within 2 weeks, it was available to us. And so we did that. Then all of a sudden, it's like you hit one of our listings, it's like save 30% on your first month. Then our subscribe and save just started like exploding. So that's been good.
That's amazing. And so one thing on what is your ad spend like? Because you're obviously now selling on Amazon. Like, what is your ad spend? Well, first, I guess sales Amazon versus Shopify, and then ad spend Amazon versus Shopify. What does that look like?
Yeah, so at first it was 0 Amazon, and then it was 10% of our sales, and then 20% of our sales. And I think now if you were to look on like a weekly, daily sort of basis, Amazon's like 30% of our sales now. Mm-hmm. We've been able to grow that very well. And part of it was because, I never, I've been doing Amazon stuff for a long time. And it's like, I never really heard too many people talk about Amazon, like from a direct marketing standpoint. It's like, what are we acquiring a customer for? And like, what's our lifetime value? And then basically deciding like, cause in Amazon, I don't know if it's still in there, but was looking at this like 2 years ago, and inside of the subscribe and save report, it would basically be like, here's your one-time purchase, I think lifetime value, and then here's your subscribe and save lifetime value. And so what we were finding out is like our lifetime value was pretty good over like a 12-month period. But then a lot of people, are kind of just all trying to break even or make money on their like first sale on Amazon. But for us, it's like we had lifetime value data like sitting there. So then we started adjusting how we marketed on there based on like, okay, we're willing to lose money for a year on acquiring a customer, because we know everything after that is like free money basically. And we know there's going to be some bleed off on our website and stuff like that. And so that kind of helped us like scale quite a bit on Amazon also.
That's amazing. Okay, and then what about your ad spend? So Shopify, right? You're doing what is your ad spend on Shopify versus revenue? Because these are kind of numbers like on Amazon. I know like, okay, good, super efficient. 5% is your total Amazon sales, and like good 15%. Like you're going pretty hard, and then of course beauty and some other ones go a little harder. Like that's a range that's typical. What about on the Shopify, right? And maybe on your thing, or maybe in general as well.
Yeah, I mean, for us right now, we've started optimizing a little more for profitability. So right now, I think we spend like $500K a month on Facebook ads, and that's the biggest advertising channel by far.
And what's what's percentage of our revenue? That's on 4 million a month. Yes. So that's like 12, 13%, something like that?
Of total sales, yeah. And so Shopify will do like, 2-point-something million a month in sales. And so less than 25% of that or so.
Okay.
When we were first scaling, like for the first year, it's like our gross margin after cost of goods sold, packaging, shipping, credit card processing was like 50%, and still is about 50%. Mm-hmm. And our advertising was like 45% of sales.
Wow.
So that means we had like 5% for OpEx. But Charles and I, the first year, didn't pay ourselves anything. We had other income sources and stuff. Just had enough to pay like a very lean team. And then we kind of maybe pulled it back to like 40% or something like that the second year. So we were heavily invested in acquiring customers and growing as quickly as possible. And then now I think it's more like 25 or 30% or something like that is kind of our target. And sometimes it fluctuates based on how advertising is performing. But I think the whole game on Shopify is like, at first, just try to break even up front. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're not making any money, but if you're just on a gross profit basis, like forget your operating expenses and stuff,
Yep. Yep.
and just try to keep those as lean as possible. So as long as you're breaking even upfront on acquiring customers and selling good products, like some percentage are going to come back and buy. Then eventually, the only way you're going to be able to keep scaling at any sort of good rate is you're going to have to understand your lifetime value and see how far you're willing to go negative. And so for us, we're like, we got to break even in month 1. And then we're like, okay, got to break even in month 2. Then we're like, okay, we're kind of okay because we got recurring revenue coming in and email marketing and all kinds of stuff that doesn't cost us anything. We're willing to break even in 6 months. And today, and for the past maybe a year and a half, 2 years, we've been like, okay, we're willing to break even over a year. And so that allows us to, like, if somebody wants to come in and compete with us, they've got to have big pockets or a big business or something like that, because they're just going to like burn through cash trying to acquire customers at the cost we're willing to acquire customers for, which is like the whole game that you're after.
And that's already with optimized hooks, optimized landing pages, optimized everything. So you already have all dialed in. And then you're like, hey, you're going to keep the CPMs high so no one else can go in and try to get your same customer who's about to buy their next coffee or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like at any point you can be like, we're willing to slow the machine down and, just want to maximize profits and stuff. But it's like, I think you can also push it a lot further and longer and build like a real lasting brand, which to me kind of all circles back to like, we don't just want to sell on Shopify, just sell on Amazon. Eventually we want to build a brand that can be sold kind of anywhere, and still think there's that opportunity for this business. But part of what helps is like, continually investing in advertising. And so that's why at some point too, we used to run very like kind of clickbaity sort of ads. But then like, you may get a 5% conversion rate if you're doing good. That means 95% of the people that see your ad, like at least you're not tracking those sales right now, but they're seeing your ad. And so at some point I was kind of like, what do the big companies do? The big companies, like, they're not so concerned about how many sales do I get right now. Over years and decades, they're like Coca-Cola plus a polar bear, Coca-Cola plus having a good time, Coca-Cola plus a baseball game, like this association with a brand. And I was like, they're spending all this money on Facebook ads. I was like, at some point we should start having those same associations, because that just kind of compounds over time, even though it's like somewhat hard to measure. So it is like, we're still trying to make money, that we can track as best as we can. But advertising for us, like, literally is an investment that does provide, we believe, like long-term intangible benefits, just because there's so much exposure happening.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And then on Amazon, what's your kind of ad spend versus sales, so to speak, there?
I think our ad spend is like a couple $100,000 a month. And then we're doing about $1 million a month there in sales. Okay. We're about to cross the $1 million level.
Nice.
And for us, we get so much brand traffic. Yeah. And then for us, it's like we get so much brand traffic because of all of our Facebook ads. And so that stuff is very profitable, but then we're willing to like invest and go negative on like the non-brand stuff. Like not go crazy, but as long as we think we're okay over like a year, that's fine.
That's amazing. Okay, sweet. Well, Matt, this has been absolutely incredible. I mean, hold on. I have a couple more questions. I feel like we got to a lot of them, but you said how to succeed really with ads on Shopify, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what are, like, and I know maybe we talked about it, but what are the keys to making Shopify like actually work? Like your website versus Amazon. You've now seen and coached so many people who do Amazon and Shopify. Like, what are the types of products, or what are the keys to actually make Shopify work once you have something that works on Amazon?
I think number one is like, make sure you have something unique to say about your product. Number two is kind of what we talked about, is like, make sure you hit all those conversion elements and try to figure out like the main angle that's going to get strangers to buy this thing. Number third one that we didn't get into, but I think is the next in line, is to get your average order value as high as possible. Because like, if you think about it, like in some sense, you're kind of competing with Amazon. And so on Amazon, your conversion rate is going to be through the roof. Everyone buys there. Everyone's got their credit card number stored there. They get like this ridiculously high conversion rate compared to normal e-commerce. But your average order value is going to kind of suck on there, because they don't let you run like order bumps and pre-purchase upsells and post-purchase upsells and all these things that you can do on your own store. And like the bundling is not really that great, in my opinion, on Amazon, as far as like, it's good for Amazon. Probably they're combining you with all kinds of other products, but in terms of like your ability to control it, but you have all those options on Shopify. So getting your average order value up, extremely important, because it kind of counteracts like the low relative conversion rate you're going to have on there. And that stuff, like, to me, it's like, have had to do it, and then I've had to teach it to people. And so to me, it's like, it takes a learning curve, kind of like Amazon at first, but it's also kind of formulaic. It's like, okay, bundle products. Like you either bundle complementary products or bundle multiple units. Like for us, it's like we force people on our sales page to basically buy 3 bags minimum. There's no 1 bag option. And that may not work best for everyone, but it worked well for us. And so that's a way to like bundle for us. And then we basically try to get them to add more stuff to their cart before they check out. And then once they check out, we offer 1-click upsells, tries to get them to add more stuff to their order. All that stuff adds up. And so that allows us to have the general target that I recommended for people as a starting point is your average order value should be like 2x the selling price of your main product. So if your main product sells for $30, your average order value on Shopify at minimum should be $60. Ours is like 3+x because we've been doing this, as well as we can for a while.
Hold on, but 3+ on your 3 bag? Or three times? No. Your 3 bag is 3 times, right?
yeah, exactly. And so our 3 bag sells for like $50 something on our sales page. Our average order value is like $75.
Okay, nice.
But a single bag of coffee, if you were to add up all the discounts and everything we got going on, more or less sells for like low 20s on our store. So then that versus the $75 is like 3+x for us. But I think a minimum is like 2x.
Nice.
That's a big one. And then the last main piece really is to try to get your lifetime value as high as possible. And so I've looked at some stat, and they say that your first order is something like, for most e-commerce businesses, is like 68% of your lifetime value. So a lot of people are like, oh, lifetime value, like you got to get people to come back and rebuy. It's like a big part of that is like the first order they ever place. But it still makes sense once you've done the average order value and all that kind of stuff to do everything you can to get people to come back and buy stuff, which is nothing that crazy. It's like, does your product catalog kind of make sense? Like we got a guy that's in our mastermind, him and his brother. I don't really want to say their product, but they sell this product that's like, it doesn't really make sense to buy multiple, but they have some complementary products and they're like, oh, we got to get a repeat purchase rate up high. I'm like, okay, but it's like, nobody wants to come back and buy 2 of these things. So it's like, you got to sell this other stuff. And so it's like, if you're only sell this one product that nobody ever wants to buy multiple of, then it's like, that's like a structural issue in your business. But for a lot of them, if you either have like consumables or products that people want to buy multiple of or whatever, then like getting people to rebuy is pretty simple. But you have to have some reason for them to come back. And so that's like, your basic email marketing flows, your SMS flows, your retargeting ads, all those kind of things, so that you're getting your lifetime value as high as possible. And the kind of benchmark for lifetime value that I recommend is like 3x your selling price of your main product. You sell a $30 product, your 12-month lifetime value on a revenue basis should be like $90 plus. And I think if you're hitting those targets, it's like you're on your way to doing pretty well. I think those are the main things when it comes to scaling. And where I see people mess up, terrible product with no differentiation, terrible landing page that doesn't hit all those marketing elements. They hire doofus ad agencies on Facebook who do useless stuff. And then they're like, I don't know Facebook, so I'm just going to like abdicate my responsibility to this agency. That pretty much never works out well. You got to watch them like a hawk, even if you know what you're doing or don't know what you're doing. It's like on a daily basis, you should be watching them. Anybody who's spending your money, in my opinion. So those are where people kind of mess up. So it's like doing the opposite, and you should be good. You may take 3 months, 6 months, or something like that. But I believe that is how you build up that channel.
That's great. I love this. So I need to get going on my Shopify. It's a very small percent of my revenue. So we're going to take this, bring it back to the team, and we're going to plan. And then we have a big site being built right now that's done someone else has done some big sites. So I really hope that this will pan out really well in our business. But anyway, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely amazing just talking to you and hearing this. Literally, you are one person and you changed so many people, their entire trajectory of their lives through a couple things, just wanting to reach out to people. It's all been through community. And so, I'm one of those people. So thank you so much for coming on, brother. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that.
What's that? Socials or anything? Oh, yeah. If someone wants to get in touch with you, do you allow that? Like, where should they find you? What do they do?
That's a good question. I would probably say just subscribe to the podcast. I'll probably announce stuff on there. You'll find it Matt Clark Show on iTunes or Spotify. I was talking with Aaron that kind of wiped out a bunch of episodes because I want to refocus on higher quality. So you'll see only 2 episodes on there right now, but my plan is to keep rolling out more. So that's probably the best place, actually.
Fantastic. And guys, those are good episodes, so check them out. All right, brother. Peace out.